Hi everyone, welcome to Review Mirror Education. Today I'm going to take you through the 4-quadrant strategy, which is an amazing way to teach your learners to ask the right questions, build upon them, and set the flow for your unit or concept. Now, before we get started with the actual strategy, you will need to have a few tools with you beforehand. If you are within the 4 walls of a physical classroom, you will need a chart paper or a whiteboard or a blackboard on which you will create the 4-quadrant template that I'm about to show you in the next slide. If you are in a virtual setting like we are right now, you could use a Google Jamboard. You could give the students access to this Jamboard so that they can add their own inputs, or you could simply share your screen and take their inputs and do the work for them if you don't want them directly collaborating or if you have younger students. In order to get started, you will need to create these 4 quadrants on either your chart paper or your Google Jamboard. The headers of these 4 quadrants are very important. They are urgent, not urgent, important, and not important. Now keep in mind these headers are going to be very important, because once the learners come up with questions based on the header that you give them, they will have to allocate their sticky notes, their questions, into a corresponding quadrant based on their level of importance and urgency. So don't forget to add these headers before you actually pose your question to your students. So how the strategy works is that once you have this template ready, you'll go ahead and you will introduce your concept or your unit related question to the students. You'll ask them to come up with questions. Any kind of inquiry that they would like to go forward with in the classroom are welcome. Ask them to write their wonderings, their questions on sticky notes and keep those with them. Now, once they get done writing as many questions as they possibly want to, ask them to one by one assess where they should place their note on the 4 quadrants. If you remember, we had 4 different headers. So ask the students to look at those headers, look at their question once again. It may be a great wondering, but is it urgent? Does it need to be tackled right at the beginning of a unit? Or can it wait before we find out a few more other things first? So the students have to introspect on the importance and urgency of the question, and they need to put the sticky into the correct quadrant. At this point of time, I would like to reiterate, it is not just an individual student's opinion on where his or her sticky should go. Group discussions on the placement of the sticky are welcome, as differing opinions and collaboration are a great way of getting different opinions and understanding how important questions are, and to work with a group to come to a consensus. So ask the students to collaborate, talk it out, and then come to a conclusion as to where exactly that sticky should go, which quadrant should it go into. So I'll give you an example. In my classroom, we were talking about migration, and we were talking about anything and everything related to migration. And I asked them, what are your wonderings about moving? Anything that they would like to know, already know, or need to explore further? And they came up with these stickies. Questions like, why do people migrate? Is migration a good or a bad thing? Are the people who migrate happy or unhappy? Are there many migrants in my school? Does migration take place from state to state or internationally as well? Can anyone migrate? My 3rd graders came up with good questions. And then when it came time to allocate a quadrant to each sticky, they had to truly introspect. They decided that the questions that were both important and urgent were, why do people migrate? To get to the big why and how of migration was very important. So they put the pink and orange sticky into the urgent quadrant. They were intrigued by the questions of, are the people who migrate happy or unhappy? They were interested to know about state-to-state migration and international migration as well, but they decided that it could probably wait until the middle of the unit or towards the end of the unit. Or maybe this information would even come about if they just started to study migration. All this information keeps popping up as we inquire further into the questions that we come up with. So in this way, students collaborated together and they put together this Google Jamboard of questions. Of course, there were many more, and I chose to take a screenshot of these. So if you can see, the students are really inquiring, creating questions, and collaborating well, and really setting the trend for where they feel the unit should go. They are deciding, in essence, where they want the unit to go, what they need to know. So inquiry is a huge factor in this strategy. Now you can also change it up if you want. If you can see here, I've used a X and a Y axis, and I've changed the labels to make it a little more child friendly for my third graders. I used labels like more important, less important, relevant. So you have more relevant and less relevant. And the X and Y axis was also an easier way for the children to decide which quadrant they should put their sticky in. So you could go about this any way that you are comfortable with. I found the strategy extremely useful because not only are the students creating the questions, they are really setting the tone for the inquiry journey of the classroom. They again learn to analyze how valuable their questions are. They're not just throwing questions up in the air and expecting to follow them, wherever they go. They really analyze the important questions and take their time to understand why a certain question is more relevant than others. And that is where collaboration truly comes in, because they get different perspectives from other students and they learn to understand that they need to maybe move forward in a group. Some points are kept as individual inquiry points, and that's okay too. This also sets the tone for your classroom. Are you feeding the students the answers, or are you letting them ask the questions? Once the students do this, they see that every question that they come up with are actually being answered. The unit's tone is being set by the questions that they've created, so they feel ownership of the lessons that they are learning. This is a great way to build student voice, choice, and agency in a classroom, and I've truly found that the 4 quadrant strategy has been a wonderful addition to my physical as well as online classes. So give it a try. If you would like to see more blogs and videos by me, I have put the address of my website in the details below. Go ahead, read some blogs, watch some videos, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.